So, welcome to the You Are the Creatrix podcast with myself, Angie Litvinoff, and my wonderful guest, Rachel Shiamh, as part of the Wild Power season. And Rachel is the founder of Quiet Earth Eco Retreat, an off grid, self sustainable woodland home in Pembrokeshire built by women. Rachel is an elemental, visionary artist who loves to draw and share circles in the sand. And Quiet Earth is an Airbnb and has been featured in Grand Designs. Her eco retreat is in St Dogmaels. So coming upon Rachel's house, for me personally, in the woods for the first time, is more than an amazing, unexpected delight to the senses. It really spoke volumes about its founder, her journey, and all that has been part of creating Quiet Earth before and since. So welcome, Rachel, to the podcast.
It's really wonderful to be in this good company and to be sharing today.
So can you tell us about your life? Tell us about your life.
Wow, that's a big statement. I feel like the journey of the last few years has been such a deep dive into surrender that in many ways there's very little to put words to, because I feel like I've been almost birthed into a new space in my life. And I'm still, I guess, still in service to nature, to Mother Nature, to my own true nature, and to walking more the path of the unknown now, which I find is a deeper form of intimacy and a way that I think we're all going to have to learn to walk again. That place of the unknown that in many ways is what is called the quantum, which is the place of many possibility, and yet it's also the place that we have to surrender to allow it to come forth into these new, really changing, awakening times.
And there's a million questions I want to ask you, but to try and keep it concise and maybe pick up the conversation another time as well, continue, is something that you're really kind of immersed in. Obviously, like, well, I say obviously, but for those listening and watching, that the elements, for me, I cannot separate you from the elements. You are so elemental. And the sand. Tell us about your art.
I suppose really my professional life was as a dancer, as experimental dance, and then when I came back home to Wales and found my land, I realized I couldn't remember why I was dancing anymore. My identity was so immersed in it that I'd lost touch. Walking on the beach one day, I just felt like I couldn't feel myself a part of nature as I used to as a child. So I realized I had to let go of that identity and let go of that profession. So that was then the journey to move into the woods and into this land that I'd found, or the land I felt found me and beckoned me in. And I was very fortunate to be able to buy it and put a hut on the land and live as a yogi. I'd been exploring yoga probably more deeply than dance for many years, and I wanted to kind of shed in my shed. And so for some years I lived in a shed without water, without electricity, without anything but the beauty of what was offered in the environment, and collected water and just got to know the plants again and the environment within myself that was natural. And it was also a challenging time. I then got permission to build an eco house. So that was a journey then to create this beautiful straw bale house overseen by women. So I was on the land for about 25 years, and about 10 years ago, I met Mark Trainer, who was my partner. He was an incredible sand artist. And yeah, one day I just stepped into one of his mandalas on the sand and began to dance. And it was like the dance had come back, naked and raw, and my own true nature was dancing through me without all the costumes anymore. And it became a kind of way of co-creating together, was that. Uh, and it feels like a dance and a flow of the elements, sand art. But I was very much like the apprentice to the technique of drawing in the sands. And then a couple of years ago, Mark passed away, he drowned. And the ocean took him, as it takes all of the sand art. And the kind of poetry of that is that nothing ends. I see it all as a continuation. And I felt like his own ascension was also, as the drawings are, they're all gifted to the ocean, and continue in some shape or form. And so I took to the sands really as a form of medicine, to continue with that connection that I clearly was still receiving from Mark. And it's the most beautiful thing in my life to be doing this. It's the lowest footprint that I could live. You know, I thought I was living a low footprint in my eco house, which now is a retreat place. And now I feel it's grown. It's 20 years now. It's become a teenager. So I've offered it now to serve others and for others to create retreat there and to enjoy it. And for me, the beauty and simplicity of just taking to the sands with a stick and a rake and a piece of string, and creating geometry, and portraits, but geometry somehow, it's like recreating myself. You know, we are made up of that, and I've discovered that through nature. And I also, a few years ago, I got quite ill during the menopause. I got liver fluke. So I was very ill for about 3 years and in a lot of physical pain. And I knew that this was a spiritual journey. I knew this was like a huge dismantling of my being. And Mark was incredibly supportive. So I had the opportunity to really surrender and drop into it. And to help me in the evenings and the night when I couldn't sleep and when I had the pain, I would just start painting on the walls, geometry, the flower of life I started with. Mm-hmm. And it was doing something for my brain. It was like balancing. I mean, that drawing behind actually is the first one that I did.
Oh,
I wanted to do a white rose, which was from the flower of life. And it became like a tonic for my healing. And so also
sorry, go ahead.
When I create it on the sand, I feel I'm just, you know, I'm recreating nature within herself. And I offer it like as a prayer into the ocean and into the ethers, into all that is.
And you also, it's also about community for you, isn't it? Because actually the sand art can be a collective experience. And for those who are not familiar with it, I mean, they're big, they're large pieces. And also there's something in your words as well about, there's something about the fact that, you know, that there is memory in the sand, so that they will always be there. They will always be there, but at the same time they are washed away. So it's that sense of, you know, you embracing that impermanence and embodying it, and having no attachment as well.
Yeah, it's true. And Mark was always very clear about it being impermanent. And I used to say, yeah, but there's something about it it's not all impermanent. And it's not all about impermanence, because the print of it goes into the ocean. and evaporates, and it continues. But it's almost like, I think in his passing he got that, in his expansion into the oneness, and I got that sense of impermanence as well, which exists on the third dimension. It is one of the realities that I
Also, you're talking about like the etheric body as well, of like the art, so that there's that memory, and there's that, invoking sacred geometry into your life, like you described when you were unwell, and allowing it to permeate and to heal, and to create a relationship with it and dialogue with it, right?
Yeah, and I think it helps to balance the hemispheres of the brain as well when you create it. And there's something quite beautiful with the moment the ocean touches the design, because it is a huge design, and it has to be drawn just before low tide, and then the tide will come in and take it within about 4 hours. And people always say, oh, that's so sad, or you must feel. But I think, across the world, there is a network of sand artists who all came together when Mark passed, because they were following him, really. So we've now got this incredible grid across the planet of sand artists that we're all contributing into the one ocean. And there's a really beautiful heart connection between us, and some of us co-created, but we all have the same sense of when the drawing is touched by the ocean, that it's like such a form of intimacy. It's so beautiful. It's like a kiss, and I love that it goes. I love that it's taken, and that the canvas is clear again, and there's no holding on. There's no ego that can kind of latch onto that.
And then I also think of you in terms of, the woods where you live, and that elevated point. I remember, like, sort of having visited St Dogmaels many times now, and I was drawn to going. In fact, my other half found somewhere for us to stay just after our baby was, our second son was born. And having lived by the sea, and then having had to leave and go somewhere else, I was nursing a bit of a broken heart about that, and I thought, I'll never find that place again. I'll never come across any. And there it was. St Dogmaels is that place for me. And we can just about, like, I remember saying, oh, where's Rachel's house, and just about be able to spot the color in the trees, and you're quite low down in the town. And just to give a kind of picture of it, it's also very energetically very, very special and powerful place in Pembrokeshire, and perhaps a lot of Pembrokeshire is like that. But there's something of there's a kind of real magnetism around that area, and it feels quite, it's palpable. It's like, it feels like you can really put your finger on it. And also what drew you to come back, and also what drew you to really kind of take root there as well. Can you describe where you are? Can you describe where you live, or the place that you're keeper of as well? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I was actually living in New York for a bit as a dancer, and I came back. I'm Welsh. My father's Welsh, and my parents had moved to the area, and I had to come back to some roots, it felt, and to nature. And so it's just wandered up. I kept going up the hill above the village, and there I found this ruin. I actually found an oak tree first. I kept coming to this oak tree, and then one day it was like, oh wow, there's a ruin here. And the next day someone just said, oh, I've heard it's privately for sale. And so it wasn't like ever my ambition to do this, and I could have missed that moment, but there was like a sense of deja vu, an invitation to explore it, and that was the journey of purchasing it for very little money. But the ruin that's up at the top there, overlooking the village, it's like a woodland with the house at the top overlooking the estuary and the ocean and the village. It was one of the oldest buildings in the village, I was told. And it's called Penchwilw, which means lookout or watchtower. So it was a lookout over the estuary for when the pirates came into the village. And back before then, when the Vikings came into the village. So it's a place of history. Someone also said it was a place of retreat for the monks of the abbey. And in the heart of St Dogmaels, like the kind of chakra center of the village, is a ruined abbey, which has got a beautiful energy. And the land links energetically with that as well. And yeah, it's quite a powerful spot. I've taken time off for the last few years since Mark passed, and I've been, yeah, I'm a little bit, home is in the heartish, and coming and going from there. Yeah, so other people can experience it. And it's off grid, so it's powered by the sun and the wind, rainwater harvested.
And then also the building of it was really special from what I remember.
Yeah.
You know, learning about it, just the, you know, collective effort.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite organic, really. Again, you know, I never had the means to build a house, so I lived in my hut, and my dad used to always come and say, "Oh, you'll find the money somehow," and then he got diagnosed with cancer, so I cared for him, and he passed away. And I remember him saying, "Oh, you're going to be able to build your house," and it was just like, wow. So I think, you know, the inheritance that I received from my father, who was Welsh, was like, that's going into the house, you know, it's all of it. And I'm going to build the most beautiful eco house. And just discovering more about straw bale. And I heard about a women's building company that pioneered in straw bale building. So I contacted Barbara Jones, and she was, yes, yeah, let's do it, and let's make it a self-build project. And then I thought, well, you know, I've done a bit of set design, I'm fit, I've got stamina, we can do this. And so over 3 years we built the house. I mean, obviously there were men involved as well, and the first architect was a guy who, you know, we connected with my vision that I got. And but yeah, it was overseen by Barbara and me, and it took 200 volunteers and all kinds of journeys to build the house and place her elegantly on the hilltop there. It did generate, I mean, in the early days it did feel a little bit like, how to put it, yeah, there were a few characters in the village that did everything to try and stop it, everything. And yet it just felt like this was going to happen and meant to happen. And then the media got very interested in it, which actually helped.
Yeah.
In terms of the village understanding about what I was doing. And yeah, Grand Designs kind of hassled me to enter the House of the Year award. So eventually I sent them some photos, and they said, "Oh, you've been shortlisted to the final 3, so we make a film." And you know, it went out as a short film for people, basically the public, to vote for 3 different houses, and our house won. And it was beautiful because in the film we just invited the people who were part of the build, which was an elderly lady in her 70s, a child who was 12 who stopped going to school because she wanted to be part of it, and it just showed what a community build could create.
Yeah, and people got to access that, which I think is always just so amazing, you know, that you know, people can connect with it on some level and maybe even visit one day. Yeah. So how can people get hold of you, Rachel? What's the best means to know about the retreat and the art, and what's the best way to reach you?
Well, my website is prehistoric, really, so I do need to recreate whoever I am within a website. But I have a Facebook page which is called Rachel Shiamh Quiet Earth, and an Instagram page, Rachel Shiamh Quiet Earth. And yeah, it's on Airbnb. It's just been awarded Sustainable House of the Year. So for those who are interested in an off-grid retreats, who want to create their own retreats. I mean, I teach yoga as well, meditation, but it's nice for people just to be there. And also mainly what I'm doing in my life now is sand art commissions, which I can create for community or for ceremony.
Wonderful.
Many different ways.
Yeah, I got a bit of a flash forward standing with you on the beach with a labyrinth. Just
yeah, I've done a few labyrinths.
Yeah.
Beautiful to do. I did a very feminine one last year for a woman who just retired and commissioned me to create a labyrinth just for her to walk, which was really interesting.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, it's all so beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and connecting to wild power and us connecting to your wild power. And obviously we'll keep in touch and just send you lots of love. Thank you so much.
Much love. Come and stay. Come to the retreat yourself.
Yeah, I would love that very much. Thank you.
Much love.